This is Guernica's 1932 depiction of the first bombing of a civilian town in Spain by the Italians. And you see the fragmentation of human life, where we have become isolated beings, unfamiliar with our connectedness and our unity. So this is the situation we find ourselves in modern times. And do we wonder that with this mindset, we have a world that needs sustainability? You cannot, with this mindset, sustain anything, no matter how many bottles you recycle. It's not possible to do it by doing. It has to first be by being. And so this is the dilemma to recover this, inner and outer in Western times. So one model that may help is something called the integral model. This, of course, came about from the early work of Aurobindo on the turn of the century. Ken Wilber's done a lot of work on it since. It's really basically simple. I can't go into this in any great detail because of the fact that, just to say, that it says that there are 4 aspects of the human experience and that we need to consider all of these. And in each of them we can grow. And the 2 we have to focus on are mostly the internal one of psycho-spiritual development and our heart. These are the 2 that are undeveloped in Western society. We do it through study, reflection, and practice. And we can all do this. The actual process is taming the mind first, the overactive, crazy mind. You've got to get some clearing in it. The training of the mind, the gaining of insight, the transformation of our emotional afflictions, and the recapturing of our authentic self with its qualities of human flourishing. Anybody can be in this process. Anybody. Instead of a physical workout, you spend some time doing a mental workout. Now, we're now testing these people, these PhDs of contemplative practice, and we're finding out there are extraordinary things that they're capable of. But it's not only them that it's capable of. If you develop that and the heart, so here you move from reactivity to wisdom over a process of growth. Here from I, a dependent sense that dominates almost all relationships, to you, to an us, to a universal embrace. It's this development that brings us the inner life that we need. Now, how do we then go about it in terms of the opening the heart? It's just seeing that everybody wants happiness, nobody wants suffering. Are you more deserving than happiness than the person next to you? Or the other person, or somebody in another continent? What makes us the more deserving? We're all equally deserving. And we realize that, we realize everybody has that right for that. And then we begin to realize something even smarter. If we begin to give what we grab for ourselves, what we want for ourselves to be happy without suffering, if we begin to give that, we actually get what we want. Here are the great words of an Indian teacher, Shantideva. Whatever joy there is in the world all comes from desiring others to be happy, and whatever suffering there is in this world all comes from my desiring to be happy. Boy, if you think about that, it is true. What need is there to know more? The childish work for their own benefit. The wise sage works for the benefit of others. Take a look at the difference between the 2. That's the inner development we have to do. And when you do that, you come to the center of your being where that treasure is. The still point of the turning world, T.S. Eliot says, the still point, there the dance is. Do not call it fixity, where past and present are gathered into the present moment. That's where human flourishing is. Round and round circle we go, says Robert Frost, but in the center, in the depth of our being, that is where it is. And these are the qualities that develop as we grow ourselves. Mindfulness, insight, wisdom and compassion, a healthy eye to otherness, to oneness. This is the growth. From an engaged spirituality to sustainability, you need from physiological interventions to very, very, very subtle mind-body strategies. This only comes with inner development. There's no other way. So, I'm not going to go much into this, except the purpose of this slide is to say that in 10-week programs, and I now, for the last 4 years, have been doing a 10-week program, several hundred people in my local community. I learned from India that you need a one-to-one relationship. I stay with these people. I don't leave them. They can call me anytime when they're in the program, out of the program, and I teach with the manual that will be out in the book in about a year. There's a manual, there's a CD, there's reference cards. We learn the practice of meditation or contemplation, not as a relaxation technique. That's another Valium. That's how it's taught in America and in the West. Not as a relaxation technique. Meditation is a technique for deep understanding, for deep insight, for the gaining of wisdom, the eradication of suffering, and the opening up of human flourishing. If you teach it that way through the multiple stages and just don't stop when it's relaxed, you undercut it all and you no longer need meditation. If not, you've got to go back to yoga or meditation every week because it's just a technique. It only works as long as you do it. So it has to be taught in that way, and it can be. And my work with people has shown me the extraordinary changes that human beings can be made when this is taught in the right way, when information about suffering is given, the causes of suffering is understood, the nature of human flourishing is understood, the nature of emotional afflictions is understood. The integration of that, not only the practices do we sit, but how do we do that with open listening, with mindfulness, with understanding reactivity in ourselves and others, and so on. All this material can be taught. It's not so hard. Within weeks, you begin to see changes in reactivity, improved relationships, deeper understandings, subjective well-being, changes in immune function. So I want to tell you it can be done, but not as a little thing. You've got to kind of churn the milk to get the butter. So it takes a bit of work. And we need to do this in centers. So they're right next to communities, people can come and get the support. Ultimately, if you begin to do that work, you can see with 1,000 eyes, you understand the true sources of the absence of sustainability and the destructiveness in this world. The true sources. Then you get to undermine it. They are within us. We are the problem. You know, we've met the problem and it's us. We are the problem. When we can see with deep wisdom, we can really get to the source of it. When we can see all the layers of our experience, we know we're not only separate individuals, Alex Gray's work, we are also interconnected in a oneness. We don't know that intellectually, we discover that through our experience. And when you know that healing myself is healing the world. Healing my world is healing myself. Helping another is helping myself. Helping myself is helping another. There's no distinction. And you know that. You can see this is the Buddha of compassion. 1,000 ways you've learned to reach out. Each hand has a wisdom eye. Because unless you know precisely what the situation is, you don't know how to cure it. And then it becomes a prayer, not a doing, not all this effort. We become so powerful, all of us, in our own lives, that the rays go out and healing takes place. And that is how we go from the end of suffering to human flourishing to the finely tuned instruments working at the deep levels that are necessary for sustainability of ourself and our culture. This is a piece done in ancient Greece about 600 BC. Notice the solidity to it. In 150 years, it becomes this. That is transformation. That is going from a one-dimensional to a harmonious understanding of human life. The second time this happened was in the Renaissance. This is a mother and child done in about 1300 BC, AD. Give it another 150 years, this is what you see. That is the transformation we're seeking now. This is big time, not small time. This is not what we just do on a daily basis. This is taking on, discovering the richness and the profundity of our own life. And it's a lot less effort to do that than it is to do all the crazy things we do with our life. And so the lotus, of course, comes from mud, confusion, from dark under the pond, and then comes up into its beautiful flowering. Innate in this thing under the mud is always this flower. So I'm going to close with the words of Christopher Fry. He said, "Dark and cold we may be, but this is no winter now." The frozen misery of centuries begins to crack, to break, to thaw. The thunder, all the noise, all the problems, the oil spills and all. The thunder is the thunder of the flows, thank God. It's our time now when everything that's wrong comes up to meet us. Things are soul-sized now, and the enterprise is into the exploration of self, God, divine, however you call it. It takes so many thousand years to wake. It takes so many thousand years for us to be able to finally move out of this drudgery of thinking we can do it outside and come to know this enormous potential and capacity for joy and for flourishing, for connection that is there in our human condition. It takes so many thousand years for you to be sitting here today, hearing this. Not my words, just stuff that's been passed on by others. It takes so many thousand years to wake, but will you wake for pity's sake? Thank you.